Let's talk about verbals. Now, a verbal is derived from a verb, so it's derived from a verb, but it's technically not a verb itself. Okay, so it's derived from a verb, and it's going to do something different in the sentence. On the other hand, it can be part of the main verb if it has a helping verb with it. So we'll write here only the main verb if it has a helping verb. And you can see there's some tension between these first 2 points then. Most of the time, a verbal is derived from a verb, but it's going to do something different than what a verb does. But if you have a helping verb with it, then the verbal can be the main verb. And you see that's kind of why these verbals cause some trouble. Then the last thing you need to know is how verbals actually function before we get to some specifics here. And verbals function usually as other parts of speech. Other parts of speech. Okay, they function as other parts of speech. And as we'll see, most of the time they're going to function like adjectives or nouns, or they're going to start phrases by themselves. And very seldomly will they function as adverbs, but we won't worry about that here. Okay, so we know then that verbals are derived from a verb, but they are not going to be your main verb unless they have a helping verb with them. Instead, they function as other parts of speech. Well, that gives us quite a bit to go on, but we still need some specific examples. There are 3 major groups of verbals. These are infinitives, present participles, and past participles. Big words, but in reality it's fairly easy to distinguish them. An infinitive is just to plus the verb. So we could say to sing, okay, to swim, to love, and to date, let's say. And notice here that date is a verb. If this was a noun, right, if you say to date we have raised $1,000, then date would be a noun and to would be a preposition. Preposition that has an object of the preposition. But in this case, we're dealing with an infinitive. The present participle is also fairly easy. We just add ing to the verb. So we can say singing, swimming, loving, dating, and so on. I think you can see the pattern here. All you do is you just add ing. The past participle is a little trickier. The past participle is one of the forms of the verb, and I have a little suggestion here for you. If you want to find what the past participle is, then just say to yourself, I had, and then try to figure out what the form of the verb is that goes with it. So if you say, for instance, I had loved, then loved would be your past participle. If you say I had dated, then that would be your past participle. But some of these past participles are a bit more irregular. So if you say swimming, for instance, then you would say, I had swum. That's kind of a weird one. Or I had sung. And now you can see that the form of to sing is sing, sang, sung, right? The past participle is quite different. For past participles then, do this little trick, I had, right, what goes in there, and then you're going to see that either it's irregular or it's quite regular, and it just uses the ed ending for the past participle. So those are our 3 major groups of verbals, but there's one more thing I need to mention here before we get into the specifics. When a present participle acts like a noun, okay, when it acts like a noun, then it has a particular name. It's called a gerund. And we'll see how this functions in an example in a minute. All right, let's go through the examples now. And we're going to do this quite quickly here. So first of all, we have dating here, and we say I had been dating someone. In this case, dating is simply part of the main verb phrase. These are the helping verbs, had and been, and dating is really the main verb here. So we're not really going to consider this a verbal here. The present participle is really part of the main verb. Instead, what we want to see is the verbal doing something different in the sentence. So our next one then, swimming is fun. Our main verb here is. Okay, you'll see here that swimming doesn't have a helping verb. And is a linking verb. And swimming then is the subject. Okay, it's the subject of this sentence. And if you have a subject, then typically you have a noun, sometimes a pronoun, acting like the subject. So swimming here then is acting like a noun, and that means that this present participle, this verbal, is a gerund. And again, a gerund is a present participle acting like a noun. And very often that'll be the subject, but it could also be the direct object or something else in the sentence. Then we have, I love my swimming instructor. Here we have swimming again. We can see this is a present participle, ends in ing, and it's modifying instructor. Instructor is a noun, so if you modify a noun, then you typically use an adjective. What kind of instructor? Swimming instructor. And now we can see that the present participle is acting like an adjective. Next one here, we have picked, and if you had this as a verb, then you would say, I picked flowers. But in this case, picked is describing flowers. And again, the clue is that pick doesn't have its own subject, right? It doesn't say who is picking. Picked is acting like an adjective. Picked then is a past participle. If you do that little trick, if you say I had what, right? I had picked, then you can see that picked is the past participle, and here it's functioning like an adjective. Next we have another past participle, but this one starts a phrase, and that's something else to point out. These participles, these verbals, they don't only have to function as adjectives or as nouns, but they can also start their own phrases. So this one reads, struck by lightning, Eugene lost his memory. And you can see that struck does not actually have a subject here. Okay, but struck here is a past participle, and it starts this participial phrase here. And then the last one, to sing well takes practice. Here is our infinitive, and this infinitive is functioning in a sense like a noun, and that's because it's the subject here. All right, so if we see what the verb is, we can say, well, takes is the verb. Who or what takes practice? To sing well. And well here is a little adverb. We're getting ahead of ourselves here, but if you want to know, adverbs can even modify verbals, and that's what's happening here. So what we've seen then is, just to repeat, there are a number of verbals. There are infinitives, present participles, and past participles. If a present participle acts like a noun, it's called a gerund. And these verbals, they will act like different parts of speech, usually nouns or adjectives, sometimes at the beginning of a verb phrase, but if they are with a helping verb, then they can also be the main verb. That's it for verbals.